Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
And why their due process rights are being so flagrantly and horrifically violated.
Bullshit.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. You know what it is? It's Friday. We have made it. We have made it to the end of the week. And let me tell you, TGIF. Thank goodness it is Friday. But before we go to the weekend, we've got a lot of news to go over. Of course, last night, Thursday night, we know we had the one of the first January 6th committee hearings. So, of course, we got to talk about that. There's a lot of stuff in there, including Donald Trump, his daughter, saying some interesting things, and of course the reaction to it. Donald Trump, not too happy about it. I got the reaction. We'll go through what he's reacting to first. We've got Ginni Thomas, her role a little bit bigger than we had thought in trying to push for the overturning of the election. We'll talk about that. We also are going to talk about Alex Jones and Lauren Boebert. So we've got all the clowns out today. Should be an interesting and fun show. Also, you might want to laugh, or else you might think about, I don't know, our slow descent into fascism. But, okay, anyway, that's the show today. Let's get into it. Before we do, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. And yes, by the way, to answer those in the chat, she did legitimately say fragrantly. I'm starting to think, like, if Marjorie Greene was smart, she would use that as a gimmick. I mean, look at it. It gets a ton of attention, but then it also gets her message out. So, like, if she was actually a smart and savvy person, you would think that, like, oh, she's doing all these weirdo food puns or, you know, mispronunciations on purpose in order to get her message out. Oh, interesting. But then you might also just realize that she's an idiot.
Peachtree dish. Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police.
And why their due process rights are being so flagrantly and horrifically violated.
I don't know, man. I can't look at that, or I can't listen to that and think, no, this is calculated. Like, she's doing this on purpose. No. No, she's an idiot. But you know what? Maybe I should do a poll. Is she an idiot, or is she doing this on purpose to get attention? Fun. I think maybe I'll put that poll out over the weekend if I get to it. All right, anyway. So that said, both? It could be both. Maybe. All right. So let's get started with some of the January 6th testimony from yesterday. Again, they spent about 2 hours testimony from a lot of different people. They've heard over 1,000 witnesses and different testimony. Some very, very big names. We're going to start out with William Barr. Interesting. All right. On Thursday night, the House Select Committee on January 6th, the Capitol riots, began presenting evidence in order to try to build a case to hold Donald Trump accountable for said riots. Now, one of the videos that was presented, and there was a lot of video here, came from private testimony. So the first one that was shown was actually Trump, former Attorney General William Barr. So now, he resigned prior to the Capitol riots and then had pushed back, of course, against the claims of mass voter fraud, definitely showing a rift between he and Trump, saying that the Department of Justice had no evidence of mass voter fraud or any election fraud, which, of course, undermined Trump's legal efforts. His lawyers, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, the Kraken lady. It undermined their efforts in several key states. Now, the other thing, of course, that undermined their efforts is the fact that they had absolutely no evidence. And so now, that said, I'm going to show you a video here. And the video I'm about to show you really does make it clear how William Barr felt about trying to overturn the 2020 election.
No, just what I've been through. I had 3 discussions with the president that I can recall. One was on November 23rd, one was on December 1st, and one was on December 14th. And I've been through sort of the give and take of those discussions. And in that context, I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was bullshit. And I didn't want to be a part of it, and that's one of the reasons that went into me deciding to leave when I did. observed, I think it was on December 1st, that, how can you can't live in a world where the incumbent administration stays in power based on its view, unsupported by specific evidence, that there was fraud in the election.
All right, so look, William Barr, not somebody I thought would be honest. Weird. No, again, let's keep it real, right? William Barr has earned a lot of criticism from mainly from the left, Democrats, progressives, etc., for his work in the Trump administration. And I'll go through some of the details. But he's also earning a lot of ire from the right wing, or at least the Trump right wing. And so it's a little bit of a weird mixed bag. And again, not something I thought I would ever see from the beginning. So now let's go through some of this, right? So now first, federal prosecutors, and this is how he helped Trump and his allies, after federal prosecutors suggested a harsh prison sentence for Roger Stone. So Roger Stone, big Trump ally, big Trump guy. Barr came in, proposed lightening that sentence, and then, of course, not soon after that, Trump commuted Roger Stone's sentence. So, all right. Now, Barr also faced scrutiny over his handling of the former special counsel Robert Mueller's report on Russian interference in the 2016 election. Now, a federal judge said that Barr had made misleading public statements to spin the investigation's findings in favor of President Donald Trump, and that is undoubtedly true. And then that same judge added that Barr had shown a, quote, lack of candor, which just basically means he lied. He was lying. He was not being honest with us. And so now the actions cited by Judge Reggie Walton at the time involved a letter released by Barr claiming that Mueller had found insufficient evidence to establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia to tip the 2016 election, and that Mueller had not reached a determination on the question of whether the president had obstructed justice. I think that's the most important part there, because it's very, very clear that Donald Trump did try to obstruct justice in this case. So now Mueller then complained to Barr in a private letter and a phone call that he had, quote, not adequately captured the seriousness of his report's conclusions. Mueller also stressed in his report and in later statements that he did not exonerate the president and that it was not an option to charge Trump because of longstanding Justice Department policy that sitting presidents cannot be indicted. So again, another way that they had helped the Trump administration. Barr also fired Jeffrey Berman, the former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Of course, the Southern District of New York had been pursuing several cases against the Trump organization. Now you have Attorney General, a DA in the Southern District of New York, Alvin Bragg, who had dropped his case against the Trump organization. So now there are no cases in the Southern District of New York. Great. So again, that massively helped Trump. Now Berman, Berman had happened to have been investigating some of Trump's allies, as well as a guilty plea. He had actually gotten the guilty plea from Donald Trump's former fixer, co-conspirator in the Stormy Daniels payoff case, Michael Cohen. So Michael Cohen goes to prison. His co-conspirator, Donald Trump, continues to be president. So that's all the ways, and not even all the ways, that's just some of the ways that William Barr had put his finger on the scales to try to help and protect former President Donald Trump. That said, there's one thing that did get Trump's ire, other than, of course, admitting the truth and the fact that the election was not stolen. He had concealed a probe or several probes involving Hunter Biden's business dealings and finances during the election. Now, of course, Trump and the Republican Party, they wanted to make a huge deal out of Hunter Biden. So let me just say this, right? Hunter Biden wasn't running for office. Hunter Biden wasn't in the White House. He's not in the White House. He's not in political office. His problems are his own and not necessarily the purview of Joe Biden. And so it doesn't really have anything to do with him, but they wanted to use the younger Biden in order to attack the older Biden. But look, all you have to do is just look at some of the stuff that Biden has actually said and the positions that he has held. As a progressive, I view Biden as not great at all. Better than Trump, but barely. And so, obviously, of course, you're coming at it from the right wing. You can't do that. So you have to make things up or tie, Hunter Biden's troubles, because he's got troubles, no doubt, tie him right to his father. Great. All right. So now, interesting, right? So for Barr, I guess there was a line. There was a bar, if you will. Didn't want to bring in Hunter Biden. Again, not running for office, had nothing to do with Joe Biden's campaign, as well as, of course, the whole idea of the big lie and trying to steal an election. That was too much for William Barr. So at least he's got a little bit of a bar. I'm actually kind of surprised because, again, I always assumed anybody working in the Trump administration that there was absolutely no bottom to the barrel of these people, right? It at least appears there was a bottom. It's very low. It's bare minimum here, right? Ooh, we didn't do a fascist takeover of the United States. Please give us a cookie. No, you're not going to get a cookie, but boy, at least you did the bare minimum. Yay. But I guess even then, you could say that, well, I mean, even with all the evil, there's this tiny little spark of decency. And maybe a tiny little bit of respect for our democratic institutions buried way deep into the heart of William Barr. Or it could just be the fact that Barr knew that this wasn't going to work and didn't want to go down with Donald Trump, who basically is a black hole. You really don't want to be tied with a coup attempt. Just saying. Now, regardless, of course, it's very clear that already it seems like the select committee, off to a bang, off to a really strong start. Because yes, even, showing the former president's attorney general calling his main claim of election fraud bullshit, pretty powerful stuff, right? No evidence to support Trump's claims. And by the way, even if you wanted the Justice Department to manufacture said claims, they wouldn't be able to do so. So again, at the end of the day, Trump, full of bullshit. All right, let's move on. Yeah, Barr was the first video. Now we go to another one. All right. During Thursday's January 6th committee hearing, testimony from former first daughter Ivanka Trump basically undercut her father's claims about the 2020 election being stolen, rigged, whatever you want to say. In fact, it's really quick, but pretty much sums it up. Take a look.
How did that affect your perspective about the election when Attorney General Barr made that statement?
It affected my perspective. I respect Attorney General Barr. So I accepted what he was saying.
I accepted what he said. Now, again, this isn't a reference to testimony from former Attorney General William Barr. So he was at the Justice Department. He investigated claims of mass voter fraud and found absolutely nothing. No evidence, nothing. No mass amounts of dead people voting, no mass evidence of, undocumented immigrants coming over and voting, Chinese hackers, Iranians, the ghost of Hugo Chavez.
In Venezuela.
It's Jewish space lasers, nothing like that. Nothing like that. He found absolutely nothing in that regard.
Bullshit.
He found nothing. It was all bullshit. So look, we did find some isolated incidences of voter fraud, yes, across the country. In fact, one place, the Villages, which is a retirement community in Florida, had a few cases. I think 4 people were arrested in Wisconsin as well, or 5 people, a few people in the Villages, just, a handful, basically. These isolated instances across the country mainly saw people who were Trump voters voting twice or using their dead relatives to vote. And of course, one person that had claimed that his dead wife's vote was stolen. Well, he was right about that. He stole it and used it to vote for Trump. Now, had she been alive, she probably would have voted for Trump anyway, but she was dead. Therefore, kind of ineligible. I'm sorry, but I guess unless you have necromantic powers to bring people back and then have them vote, again, it just doesn't work out. It just doesn't work out. So again, and look, by the way, when it comes to voter fraud, personal anecdotes, right? That's how many there are. You can have a personal anecdote. I'd heard that one of the women's in a group home for the disabled that somebody I know worked at, there's a woman with mental and physical disabilities. She was essentially forced by her brother to vote for Trump. She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know what she was voting for. She didn't know who, again, she was severely mentally and physically handicapped. And he's like, no, you're going to vote for Trump because I vote for Trump. Oh, great. Again, that's a personal anecdote. And by the way, that would be considered voter fraud because if you fill out someone else's ballot without being able to, get authorized as being an advocate, which would then under law allow you to fill out a ballot for someone else with their express permission. I don't think that happened in that situation. Okay. But again, one example, one anecdote, very vague in the details. And again, you can ask people, yeah, there's plenty of that anecdotes that people can come across. But that's not evidence. That's not enough to prove mass voter fraud. Because if there was mass voter fraud, there would be evidence of it. It would be well documented, especially since we are able to, in this country, be able to find incidences of voter fraud individually. So, and if they can find those and arrest those people, you would think that it would be much easier to find the mass voter fraud. And look, the numbers are so small that Wisconsin found about 10 cases total. 10. You know how many votes were cast? Just in Wisconsin, one state, 3.2 million. Millions and millions and hundreds of millions of votes. It is infinitesimally small. Something around what, 0.00001% voter fraud rate? Come on. There's just, again, no evidence. But hey, and by the way, if you are going to use this claim, and this was the problem with Trump, that the election was rigged in order to try to stay into power, then you should at least have some receipts. You should bring some goddamn evidence. Because if you don't have the evidence, and if you know you're lying about it, and you know you don't have the evidence, and you're using that to stay in power anyway, to prevent a peaceful transfer of power, well, guess what that is? That's a coup. That's an attempted takeover. And that's illegal. Can't do that. And by the way, nobody with 2 functional brain cells wants to be implicated in a coup. Now, if you don't have the brain cells, or you have very powerful friends who are willing to risk themselves to protect you, and you actually have a plan, that might actually succeed, well then, I guess it's more likely that people might join in your coup. But again, it's not what happened the first time. Donald Trump's first attempt was a complete and utter failure. Now, that said, so people tend to get confused about what the coup really is. Okay? That coup is not the January 6th riot. No, the real coup was using fake electors. You had fake electors, media disinformation, put out by grifters, legal challenges that basically were wastes of time and money. Again, look at all the recounts in Arizona. You had all of that. And then, of course, you had challenges to things like, the scary terms like ballot harvesting, which was legal in a lot of places until Republicans decided to ban it. All ballot harvesting is that you go around, you have a designated individual to go and collect ballots and then drop them off. Ballots that were filled out by other people. And again, if you're the designated person to go and pick up those ballots, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that helps in poor communities, communities of color. Oh, right, those places tend to vote for Democrats. But also, by the way, you could also do that for senior citizens so that they don't have to go out there and vote. Where they can go and fill out their absentee ballot. Somebody could pick it up. It's actually more efficient. Makes sense. But no, Republicans hate that because it actually makes voting easier. And they can't do that. They don't want to do that because if they do make voting easier, well, then they tend to lose more when more people vote. So, that said, Trump used that media disinformation. There were those fake electors. We'll get to that in Arizona. But there were in other key states like Michigan. That was part of it. And the goal was to create so much public doubt about the 2020 election and who actually won. I don't know who won. I don't know. I keep hearing different things from different people. I guess I don't know. I guess we'll just keep Trump into power or something. And again, we've also seen reports of Trump trying to use the military to seize voting machines so that, of course, we couldn't actually go and look at the voting machines to disprove the voter fraud narrative. And, of course, all of that would lead him to be able to stay into power. Now, William Barr didn't go along with that. Mike Pence didn't go along with that. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger didn't go with that. Hell, even Sean Hannity, Fox host, didn't go along with that. Laura Ingraham, many of Trump's former staff members, they didn't go along with that. At least not at the beginning. So at the end of the day, maybe they knew that it was wrong. Or that they, of course, knew that it was based on a lie. And maybe they were concerned, at least for a minute, about democracy and about protecting democracy as we know it in this country. Then again, I'm not also saying that these people really cared about our system of government for, or what's best for our country. It seems like they don't. But at least what we know from privately, their words and actions, even if disingenuous and just trying to protect their own ass, might have actually also helped to protect our democracy. At least for the time being. So, okay. Let's move on here. We're going to get to the Trump reaction to this. On Thursday evening, the January 6th committee held its first hearing to air evidence that former President Donald Trump knew that he had lost the election. Everybody around him knew that he had lost the election and therefore had tried to steal it by partly trying to encourage the violence at the Capitol, as well as the fake elector scheme, etc. Now, the select committee showed interviews of some of Trump's closest advisors during this attempted coup. Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, Attorney General William Barr, Trump campaign spokesperson Jason Miller, as well as General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, these hearings were broadcast all over the major news networks, as well as many independent outlets, with one exception, Fox News. Weird. They didn't really talk about it all that much. I mean, sure, yeah. They showed a little bit, they showed the room every once in a while. They'll, pop in, oh, how are the propaganda hearings doing? But even though Fox News didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to it, one person was watching very intently, and that was former President Donald Trump. In fact, he took to Truth Social. He said this: "So the Unselect Committee of Political Hacks refuses to play any of the many positive witnesses and statements, refuses to talk of the election fraud and irregularities that took place on a massive scale, and decided to use a documentary maker from fake news ABC to spin only negative footage." Okay, wait. So let me just ask, what positive witnesses? I mean, look, the January 6th committee subpoenaed a lot of people in the Trump world to come in and bring their statements. Well, why didn't they? A lot of them happened to either refuse to testify or to even answer subpoenas. And the ones that did, well, the ones that didn't really make you look all that good, or didn't make Trump look all that good. So maybe it has something to do with, being under oath. And if you're caught in a lie under oath, well, that's very bad for you. It's going to go very, very badly. So, yeah. Look, again, we had the Justice Department. We had numerous other Trump officials saying, we just didn't see any evidence of mass voter fraud. Believe me, we wanted to. We looked. We didn't see it. It's not there. It doesn't exist. In fact, Trump campaign aide Jason Miller told Trump that, quote, in pretty blunt terms, that he was going to lose. And that is based on the numbers that they had that night. Now, he came out later and said, oh, you took me out of context. I mean, a little bit. Yes, I did say that based on the numbers that we had, but I didn't talk about the challenges that we are doing in the states for the numbers. And so, we didn't factor that in. Okay, well, you had 59 cases that you had brought challenging the election results all over the country. 59 cases of which you lost. You won one, and that was on a technicality. And by the way, that netted Trump a good, 200 additional votes? Oh, mass voter fraud. Look, again, you also had numerous recounts finding additional ballots for both candidates, by the way. You had more, some places that that would find more ballots for Joe Biden, and others that found additional ballots for Trump, and many that found additional ballots for both. And it didn't really change the result all that much. It wasn't even near enough to change the results. Joe Biden won the election. But again, we've had conspiracy after conspiracy, which always continues to get debunked, but they never stop with new conspiracy theories, propaganda films. You have Mike Pillow and his crusade to prove that it was the Iranians, the Pomeranians, the Chinese hackers, just all this ridiculousness that we had. And it really turned this guy into an absolute laughing stock. Sidney Powell's Kraken. Remember, she was going to release a Kraken? Well, she released something. It was just a dead fish. Rudy Giuliani, speaking of dead things that might smell dead, at least, he has been disbarred for lying and forced to, do cameo videos for cash to pay his legal fees. Sorry. Almost everybody around Trump has faced some sort of consequences over that big lie, except for him. Trump hasn't faced any consequences, not any real ones. He's a giant black hole, and everybody around him is going to go down in that hole. And even if he doesn't face legal consequences, which I hope he does, his reputation, it's not good. It's never going to recover. That said, it is still possible that he could become president again because of how completely just messed up our electoral system is, how weak the Democratic Party is in fighting against them, and the very possibility that, could rig the election. But again, I think the third possibility is fairly unlikely, depending on what you would consider to be rigging, because everybody has a different definition on what rigging actually means. Look, if you're thinking like, okay, he's going to do the thing that he is accusing Democrats of, just straight up forging ballots, I think that's way less likely because it's more likely to get caught. But I do think that if the Republicans continue with their plans to disenfranchise as many Democratic voters as possible through voter suppression, things like voter ID laws, taking away polling places, things like that. I would see them trying to bring back a poll tax if they could. I think that's far more likely, things like that. That said, he's not done. He then also goes after William Barr. He says, Bill Barr was a weak and frightened attorney general who was always being played and threatened by the Democrats and was scared stiff of being impeached. How do you not get impeached? Do nothing or say nothing, especially about the obvious rigged and stolen election. To put it another way, the crime of the century. The Democrats hit pay dirt with Barr. He was stupid, ridiculously said that there was no problem with the election and they left him alone. It worked for him, but not for our country.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
That's what I got to say about that one. It's funny. When Barr left, he's like, William Barr, he was tremendous. Wonderful to have him. Did such a great job. Isn't that what happens every single time a Trump administration official leaves or had left? Like, there's wonderful. We're sad to see him go, and then later on, coffee boy, incompetent, the worst. They're weak, sad, and pathetic. Same thing every single time. In fact, in a follow-up, he added, Bill Barr was a coward who would not let his U.S. attorney in Philadelphia, where election fraud was rampant, to even think about looking at it. Okay. Again, we had all of these recounts and all of these audits. No evidence! They just can't find it. And you would think that they would have found it by now. At least something. Now, finally, though, the best rage, truth, I guess, is Donald Trump throwing his own daughter under the bus. In response to her video testimony, he said this, quote, Ivanka Trump was not involved in looking at or studying election results. She had long since checked out and was, in my opinion, only trying to be respectful to Bill Barr and his position as Attorney General. He then added, he sucked. Oh, how bad does it look when your daughter doesn't even agree with you? Doesn't even agree with you. Then again, he then said she was checked out. What does that mean? What does being checked out mean? What, is she not paying attention to the election, which was very, very important to both you and I assume the rest of your family who had worked in the White House with you? Remember, Ivanka was using this. Ivanka and Jared were both using their position in the White House as advisors to get special deals. You would think that they would want to stay in that position of privilege and power and influence to be able to make more deals with world leaders and make more money, because it always comes down to the money when it comes to the Trumps. But you think that with her future business possibilities hanging in the air, that she just wouldn't pay attention to the election? The one thing that I can guarantee Donald Trump couldn't stop talking about, oh, the election, it's coming, the election, it's going to be tremendous. Yeah, okay, Dad, pass me the potatoes. Or in this case, it'd be, Daddy, please pass me the potatoes. No, of course she paid attention. Yes, she paid attention. But again, he also accused her of being just very nice to William Barr. Yeah, okay, sure. The whole thing is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Again, the first day of the hearings, this is only the first day. Only the first day. Not so good for Trump. In fact, pretty bad. But let me just say this. This is not going to matter to any of his sycophantic followers. They don't care. They don't care. Not at all. They look at this and say, don't give a shit. Trump 2024. Over and over again. Because they're a cult. And that's it. They're tied to this person. And by the way, it's not just the weirdo cult followers, but also you have people in positions of power that have tied their careers to people like Donald Trump. And that's it. But understand that those people don't matter. They're a fringe. They're a minority of a minority. No, what this is really about is trying to get to the truth of the matter. And yes, it's not even going to matter probably politically. I don't see Trump getting in trouble at all for this, even no matter what the evidence is. I don't think Merrick Garland's got the balls to go after him. That said, it's still a matter of the truth. Trump knows the truth. He knows that what he did, he knows exactly what he did. And that's why he's being just incredibly pissed off that people are hearing about it. That's it. Outraged careers are tied to Trump. Yeah, it's true. This is all desperation. So okay. So here's the thing, right? So this is the argument that I'm seeing, okay? From the right. This is a deflection from Biden's poll numbers. It's a deflection from high gas prices. Hey, you know what would actually like solve those issues and made it so you don't need a distraction? Actually do something. Like, I don't know, hold these companies accountable for price gouging. The price of a barrel of oil is lower than it was in March. And yet we have gas prices that are $1 higher. Well, of course, the fact of the matter is that the president doesn't control gas prices high all over the world. No, it's corporations. Now, I guess that there's certain regulations that you might be able to put on corporations, things that you might be able to do to punish them for price gouging. But in general, the president doesn't control gas prices. So, I mean, good luck with that. Good luck with the messaging, because apparently there's a lot of people who just don't understand factual reality. They would rather play their stupid partisan games and their bullshit than actually, address real issues. And by the way, I'm talking about both sides on this one. Because look, you have the Democrats who still refuse to do simple things like canceling student loan debt. So like, okay, you've got something that you could easily do today. You could do an executive order. And there are some executive orders that you can do. And yet Biden refuses to do any of the ones that he could actually do. And again, there's a difference here between like executive orders that step all over the Constitution and simple things that actually help the American people that won't run afoul of that. So, I don't know. Yeah, it would be nice that he actually does something. But at the same time, it is important to get to the truth of what happened on January 6th as well. So, because we know that Donald Trump absolutely should not be able to run for president again because he tried to foment an overthrow, a coup. So let's go to more here. This is Ginni Thomas. We're going to be seeing a lot of shortages soon. It's true. Yeah, no, it's true. We have some more information about the efforts of Virginia Thomas's efforts to help overturn the election for Donald Trump. So now, Virginia Thomas, also known as Ginni Thomas, is the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. And what we know is, well, what we knew before is that she had been, of course, trying to urge elected officials to back Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the election. It's part of the what was known as the Green Bay sweep, and this was outlined by Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. So that was basically to replace the real electors in the different states with fake electors. These fake electors would vote for Donald Trump no matter what, based on the idea that there was mass voter fraud in their state. So now we know that there wasn't mass voter fraud in the state, especially when it comes to Arizona. They had the whole Cyber Ninjas report that tried to find evidence of voter fraud. And by the way, they were very, very motivated to do so. They couldn't find a goddamn thing. So they couldn't find anything. All the official state audits couldn't find anything. No reason to have the fake electors. Nonetheless, Thomas was pushing for this, as well as other people, as well as those in the Trump administration, in the White House. So now, for Thomas, the Post reported last month that Thomas had sent emails to two different Arizona House members in November and December of 2020. Now, she had used something called Free Routes, an online platform intended to make it easier to send pre-written emails to multiple elected officials. All right, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. It's a great, platform to use. Now, what we know now, the new information, is that actually the number of people that had been sent these emails far larger than two. In fact, she sent on November 9th identical emails to 20 members of the Arizona House and 7 members of the Arizona State Senate. That actually represents more than half of the Republican members of the state's legislature at that time. So, hey, if you get half on board, they can replace the electors. That message, just days after media organizations called the race for Biden in Arizona, as well as nationwide, urged lawmakers to stand strong in the face of political and media pressure, and claimed that the responsibility to choose electors was yours and yours alone, and that they had the power to fight back against the fraud and ensure that a clean slate of electors is chosen. Now, again, the fake electors here in Arizona were, there's at least a dozen of them. Some of them had been identified and subpoenaed by the House committee. 2 of them, Michael A. Roman and Gary Brown, actually worked for the Trump campaign. Others included Douglas Mastriano, Laura Cox, Mark Fincham, and Kelly Ward. Again, we know who they are because they signed literal fake paperwork. These are forged documents purporting to be real documents, certifying them as the state's official electors. Which, again, that's not true, but they fixed the official state seal. Why they have not been arrested for fraud and forgery, I don't know. They're not real electors. They committed fraud. But now, the J6 committee, again, when it comes to Michael Roman and Gary Michael Brown, had also reportedly promoted allegations of election fraud, as well as encouraged state legislatures to appoint false slates of electors. This was, again, as I explained, the Green Bay sweep. Ginni Thomas, also part of that effort, one of many who were part of that effort. Among the lawmakers who received the emails was Representative Anthony Kern. Now, Kern was a Stop the Steal supporter who lost his re-election bid in November 2020 and joined Representative Louis Gohmert, i.e. one of the dumbest men in Congress, as a plaintiff and others in a lawsuit against Mike Pence. They sued Mike Pence for not decertifying the election. Again, that's a ceremonial role. That doesn't actually decide if the election is going to be certified. It's just, it's ceremonial. It's not real. But all right, sure. Now, Kern, by the way, also photographed outside the Capitol during January 6th, during the riot, but said, I didn't enter the building. I wasn't in there. You know, in Michigan, the FBI just raided another Republican candidate for being at that riot and waving people in. So, I'm just saying. Now, there's more details here. On December 13th, the day before members of the Electoral College were slated to cast their votes for Biden's victory, Thomas had emailed 22 House members and 1 senator. The email said, before you choose your state's electors, consider what will happen to the nation we all love if you don't stand up and lead. It linked to a video of a man urging swing state lawmakers to put things right and not give in to cowardice. So now, look, what's important about Ginni Thomas is she was obviously awash, fully immersed in election conspiracies. Now you might think, okay, so half the Republican Party is already too. Okay, fair enough, but the rest of the Republican Party is not married to a Supreme Court justice who could have potentially ruled on this. Now, again, the relationship itself alone wouldn't ordinarily mean anything. Again, you have plenty of couples that, work in positions of power that don't necessarily, have interactions that could make this conflicts of interest, right? They don't get into each other's work. They may disagree on politics. Again, you've got plenty of that, right? But here in this case, Clarence Thomas clearly used his position in order to try to shield his wife. Again, he was the lone dissenting vote on not releasing information to the J6 committee from the White House. That is, by the way, where we found all this information about what Ginni Thomas was up to. Now, look, if you're a judge, you're supposed to recuse yourself from cases where you have, or you might have a bias. I can't think of anything more biased than having your wife trying to overturn an election that you also might have to rule on. Again, huge conflict of interest here. But again, I know people that are trying to downplay this as, well, she was just expressing her opinion. That's all. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's nothing criminal about that. She has the right to express her opinion. Yeah, she does. That's true. She does have a right to an opinion. That said, you don't have the right to subvert democracy. She has all the rights to, send as many letters as she wants. And hell, even pressure to people to, do her campaign or whatever of like, oh, we think we should have a recount or something like that. I don't agree with the election. All right, fine, whatever. But think about it this way too. She also, due to her position, has a lot of influence, has a lot of pull. More so than the average private citizen. Okay? Now, again, she's a right-wing activist. She's been a right-wing activist for a very, very long time. But since she does have her connection to a Supreme Court justice, there's a lot of groups there that would find that very attractive to get her into the groups as well, and for her to use her influence to exert on her husband. Now, to pretend that isn't a possibility is pretty ridiculous. And we also can't pretend that what she had done, trying to, influence politicians in Arizona, a key state, to put in a bunch of fake electors, that is unprecedented. It's not normal. It's not normal at all. Now, there's a little bit more information as well on the platform. Now, the letter writing campaigns were organized by on freeroots.com. So again, Free Roots advertises itself as a platform to amplify grassroots advocacy across the political spectrum. There's nothing wrong with that. A post review of its archived web pages shows that it was heavily used in late 2020 by groups seeking to overturn the presidential election results. All right. One of those groups is called Every Legal Vote, which ironically didn't want to count every legal vote. They wanted to disenfranchise Biden voters. They organized a campaign to send the message that Ginni Thomas sent on November 9th. The exact same message. In those first days after the November 3rd election, Every Legal Vote described itself online as a, quote, labor of love by American citizens in partnership with the nonprofit United in Purpose, according to web pages preserved by the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. So, okay, where's this going? Where am I going with this? Well, it doesn't seem like it's all that grassroots when you look at it, because that group, United in Purpose, also recently hosted luncheons where Thomas would present impact awards to different right-wing leaders. Oh, so it looks like a little bit more than just your grassroots activism. But I'm sure that's just a coincidence, right? Oh, coincidence. Another coincidence is Kern declaring himself and others the state's duly elected and qualified electors when they, of course, were not. Kern was also more than a dozen lawmakers who signed onto a letter to Congress the same day calling for the state's electoral votes to go to Trump or be nullified completely until a full forensic audit can be conducted. Well, they got their audit, and it didn't exactly go their way, did it? The lawmakers' letter was an exhibit in Kern and Boebert's lawsuit asking a federal court to rule that Pence had exclusive authority and sole discretion in deciding which electoral votes to count for a given state. So now Pence is like, no, I don't have that authority, and I'm not going to just not certify the election, which then led, of course, to calls to hang Mike Pence, literally. Now, the plaintiffs also asked the Supreme Court to intervene after the case was dismissed in the lower courts. Now, the timing here probably worked out in favor of democracy because it was just the day after the January 6th insurrection, the court decided not to take up this case. Because it probably would have looked really, really bad. And look, that's the thing, right? Ginni Thomas, Donald Trump, Trump allies, they wanted this to go to the Supreme Court. How many times has Trump said, let's take it to the courts, let's take it to the courts? Now, why? Why? I think the only reason that they would do that is that they were likely under the impression that they could win that case. Or at the very least, try to delay Biden as much as possible from taking power. The assumption here, and it's a big assumption, is that, hey, look, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, I gave you your jobs. You'd be nowhere without me. Again, remember, Trump's transactional, right? So he thinks I did this for these guys. I put Amy Coney Barrett on the court. I put Justice Kavanaugh. I put Neil Gorsuch on. They owe me. And they're going to keep me in power. Well, that's not how it works. And by the way, I think also some of them might have assumed that Thomas would be a yes vote in ruling in favor of Kern's and Boebert's case. Which is why I also think that Ginni Thomas, in her texts with Mark Meadows, well, had been pushing in that direction as well. Because again, she had also talked about the court. Either way, I think it's pretty clear from all of that, all the stuff that we know from Ginni Thomas, is that Clarence Thomas really needs to be recusing himself. Now, I know that there is no way to force a justice to recuse himself from a case, not a Supreme Court justice, but I'm really hoping that all the evidence that is stacked up will create enough pressure, internal and external, to get him to at least recuse himself from any case that involves his wife and the 2020 election. because it is very, very obvious that he is biased and compromised. It shouldn't be allowed to rule on these cases. All right. And let's go actually to this one. This is fun. Switch over to Alex Jones. All right. Far-right conspiracy theorist and InfoWars host Alex Jones has suffered another legal defeat. Devastating. This time involving his bankruptcy claims. On Friday, June 10th, in Texas, according to an Associated Press report, the U.S. bankruptcy judge Christopher Lopez had dismissed a bankruptcy protection case involving 3 of Jones' companies: InfoWars, InfoW LLC, Prison Planet TV, and IW Health. Hilarious that it's health. This guy sells bullshit supplements. The judge's action allows the parents' defamation suits, this is the Sandy Hook parents, of course, against Jones, to continue in Texas and Connecticut, where trials are pending on how much he should pay the families after judges in both states found Jones and his companies liable for damages. The families' lawsuits say that they've been subjected to harassment and death threats from Jones's followers because of the hoax conspiracy that Jones has promoted on his show, saying that, oh, it's a false flag. It's a false flag to come take your guns. That's what it is. We've had I think just this year, 230 mass shootings. That'd be a lot of false flags, wouldn't it? Nonetheless, right? So now the families, as a result of all of this insanity that Jones was constantly peddling on his show, the families ended up getting re-victimized over and over and over again. Not only did they lose their kids, but also you had unhinged people coming to their house and saying, your kids aren't really dead. They weren't real to begin with. Crisis actors, fake children. You're here to take our guns. And that's the nonviolent ones who didn't send death threats. So now earlier in the year, Jones agreed to a settlement from this in the lawsuit from relatives of the children who were killed, saying he would pay them $120,000 per plaintiff. They rejected that. That's good. They should take him for every goddamn cent he has. InfoW LLC, Prison Planet TV, and IW Health then filed for bankruptcy on April 17th. So now, according to an article by Jonathan D. Last, published in the Bulwark on April 30th, he described Jones' bankruptcy filing as nothing more than a cynical maneuver designed to protect his own net worth from, obviously, and as well as from him having to pay the families for the harm that he has actually caused. The Southern Poverty Law Center's Hate Watch also reported in May that Jones has been receiving help from an unknown crypto millionaire. The donor supplied Jones 206 Bitcoin worth over $5 million on May 19th and 52 Bitcoin worth around $2 million in April, all from a single Bitcoin wallet. So again, he's been helped out by this guy, or this person, whoever it is. He's got somebody out there making it rain on him, this crypto. So AP notes that although the Sandy Hook families agreed to drop InfoW LLC, Prison Planet TV, and IW Health from defamation lawsuits, the lawsuits will continue against Jones himself and free speech systems. According to the AP, the families in the U.S. Trustee's Office, a Justice Department agency overseeing bankruptcy, had questioned the legitimacy of the 3 companies' bankruptcy filing and sought to throw out the case, saying it was only a tactic to delay the lawsuits, which is 100% true. Of course it was a delay. And again, I think that he wanted to move his money around. We saw some pretty suspicious transactions, especially this company that Jones claims that he owed $20 million to. I mean, just these absurd amounts of money that he is, oh no, this is for unpaid debts. That's what it is. Unpaid debts that I ran up $20 million. And now I just happen to be broke. I forget the length of time. I think it was within 3 years, he made $135 million just off his bullshit supplements. The guy ain't broke. Come on. He's not broke at all. Again, he's just trying to make sure that the families that he had caused so much pain and harassment to get absolutely no justice. Or as little justice as he can get. So, all right. One last story for y'all. Representative Lauren Boebert is now facing a probe from Colorado's Attorney General after a complaint was filed against her over some fraud. So now she's been accused of fraud from her 2020 congressional run. It's a story that we actually already talked about. We had already covered. However, this new development has led to is a probe. Awesome. So now let me give you the details, okay? The New York Times reported on Wednesday that the group that successfully targeted controversial Representative Madison Cawthorn filed a complaint against Boebert, alleging that she had inflated mileage she logged on the campaign trail in 2020 and then used more than $20,000 in reimbursements from donors to pay off some tax liens on her restaurant. The Deputy Colorado Attorney General for Criminal Justice, Janet Drake, has confirmed to David B. Wheeler of the American Muckrakers PAC, that again, that's the PAC that took down Madison Cawthorn, that both her office and Colorado's Department of Revenue and Department of Labor Employment will be investigating this issue. So now this comes from a story back in February of 2021 by the Denver Post. Boebert, they found, had cashed checks from her campaign totaling $22,259 for mileage reimbursement. Interesting. Now, in 2020 gas prices, $22,000 worth of gasoline would actually have driven you about 38,712 miles. You know what that is? That is more than the entire circumference of the Earth. I mean, that's a real stretch. That's a real trip, literally. By the way, the circumference of the Earth is 24,901 miles. Even at today's gas prices, which are insane, driving around Lawrence District isn't going to cost you $259. It's not going to happen. Massively fraudulent. In fact, the Denver Post reported that Boebert would have had to drive 36,870 miles in just over 7 months between April 1st and November 11th to justify the second payment, adding that Boebert's reimbursements to herself in 1 year eclipsed her predecessor's reimbursement over 10 years. Boebert's predecessor, Representative Scott Tipton, had reimbursed himself $9,797 from campaign coffers for all of his travel expenses, including airfare, over a period of 10 years. So, but she claimed over double that for a period of 7 months. What this guy spent in 10 years. Wow. Yeah. Now, again, we know where the money went. Boebert is accused of using these reimbursed funds to pay off tax liens filed against her restaurant. The Times noted the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment filed liens totaling $20,000 against Boebert from August 2016 to February 2020 for failure to pay unemployment premiums on her business, Shooter's Grill. Now, again, the question is, that report's been out for a while. Why did it take so long? Hey, that's a real good question, Colorado. You might want to answer that. Odds are, look, again, this state got shamed into doing what they're actually supposed to be doing. Now, it's a good thing that at least we had this group to go and put enough pressure on Colorado. And this, again, this is the same group that took down Madison Cawthorn. He lost his election primary due to some pretty interesting videos that came out about him. Interesting is quite the word. He's also under investigation for insider trading on cryptocurrency. Big surprise there. Wheeler's group also announced back in mid-May that Boebert would be their next target. Quote, "We helped fire Madison Cawthorn. Now it's Boebert's turn." The group announced after launching a website called fireboebert.com. I think we're going to go after Lauren Boebert in Colorado in a similar way. I think we're going to engage in that race pretty quickly. Well, they were true to their word. That's for sure. There you go. Now, the muckrakers' official complaint to Colorado's Attorney General that got them into action says, "As you are both fully aware, utilizing an illegal source of funds or ill-gotten funds to pay off a tax lien is illegal in Colorado and under federal law." That is the very definition of ill-gotten funds. So now look, we're going to have to see if this overly blatant corruption, because it is corruption, is enough to take down Lauren Boebert. It's not as salacious as the Cawthorn stuff, to be fair, but I think a lot of Republicans also hate corruption. They do. They really do. The thing is, they never hear about it from their media sources. They never hear about it when it comes to their side, when it comes to Fox News, when it comes to Republicans. But they do hate corruption. That's fairly clear. And Boebert is very corrupt. Incredibly corrupt. So, look, not only that, but again, I've talked about this before, Lauren Boebert doesn't serve her constituents. In fact, they're pretty mad that she has been only working on her own celebrity. And now taking money from her campaign illegally and using it to pay off her own personal bills. Total corruption. I mean, again, we're going to have to see what happens if this is enough to, get her in some serious trouble to where she might have to resign her position or not. Or if this is just like the final straw for a lot of her voters to kick her out of office. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. All right. That's all I got today. Let's go to some super chats here. Let's see. Adult Onesie with a very kind $10 says, "I love the show. Glad to catch it live today." Well, thank you. Glad you're here. Dasuki Kirakun says, "At the end of the day, Barr will save himself above everyone else. Loyalty? What's that?" Yeah, they don't quite understand loyalty, for sure, especially to their country. It's a good point. Corio, thank you for the very kind $5. Angela R, thank you to the very kind $5 as well. Really appreciate that. Let's go over here to Twitch. Don't have anything new on Twitch today, but again, thank you for all the YouTube super chats, all the new follows, and all that wonderful stuff. All right, so. Oh, by the way, like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. Let's do a raid here over on Twitch. Let's go to. Haven't done a Lumi raid in a while, so we'll do that. Lumi, by the way, they, them pronouns. So you know, very, very based content creator. All right. So, like I said, thank you all. Have a great, great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. Have a great weekend.
will eat your ass.
I have not loved this conversation.
Big, massive dump.
Peachtree dish.
No.
God bless you.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.